Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2011 Ram 5.7 Hemi. Guess what we're doing on here? I bet you couldn't guess it was exhaust manifolds. Well, we have a conundrum. On the left-hand side, the dipstick tube has to come out. And as you can imagine, with the cast block, it's not coming out. Let's turn the lights on here. So there's a dipstick tube. So my proposal is, I've measured this, it's 385 thou, which is pretty close to 3/8. So I'm going to cut the dipstick tube in this spot right here and join it back together again after with a 3/8 ferrule union. I've done this on GM trucks and it works quite well. It saves you having to try to get that piece of dipstick tube out of the block, which is not going to cooperate down there. Anyways, make sure you take the dipstick out before you cut it. So it turns out that the tube is 10 millimeters, not 3/8. And 3/8 of an inch is about 372 thou or 375 thou. And 10 millimeters is 394. So the 3/8 flare union won't fit. So I'm just going to use a piece of fuel line and a couple of fuel line hose clamps. That should work just fine. There's no pressure on it. So there's the manifold off. Got two broken bolts with a piece of the bolt sticking out, so hopefully we can grab those with a stud remover. I'm going to heat them with a magnetic resonance heater, but the front bolt, which is probably one of the most difficult to get to, snapped off flush in the head. Oh boy. So we're going to have to try to extract that bolt. Let's go for the easy ones first. So there's my magnetic resonance heater. I heated the studs, and as you can see, they came out with the stud remover because there was enough to grab with the stud remover. These are Ultra Pro stud remover, so focus. There's the two broken studs. The one bolt that broke at the front, you can see that it was only holding by half. I tried to heat it before. I usually heat the bolts first with the magnetic resonance heater to let the heat soak up the bolt, hopefully release. But this one snapped because it was rusted halfway. It was cracked halfway through anyway. So now we got to get that broken piece out of the head. So there you can see how that stud is broken off, pretty much flush with the head. Got the gasket surface cleaned up with a Rolox sanding disc on a die grinder. Be very careful not to cut any of the or significant amount of aluminum. I love these swivels. I got air swivels on every one of my air tools because you can't get into these tight places with the air line properly without those swivels. So I got a die grinder with a pointed bit, and I'm going to auger around the outside circumference of the bolt in the aluminum head just a little bit to relieve any burrs in there, and then we're going to weld on the end of it with a MIG welder. So I found this ball rasp work better. You can see how and the bolt's actually broken down and about a 1/16 of an inch below the surface, so I cleaned the end of the bolt up too, so there's no oxidation on it. So put a bolt and nut in the head surface for your ground. And you can see I built up on the end of it with the MIG welder. I'm going to try and extract it just with the vice grips now, grabbing that little nub. So I got the vice grips locked on there. Let's try it. I hope the stud's turning. Don't try and horse it out all at once. Try working it back and forth. Hope my fat head wasn't in the way. Probably was. Okay, I'm going to reposition. is. Came out with the first attempt. So now we just clean up that surface, and I might run a thread chaser in that bolt hole just to make sure that everything's clean, and put the new manifold and gaskets on. So the customer has supplied all the parts. He's got new exhaust manifolds from Dorman. That's the left side. New shields. New bolt kits, also from Dorman. Oops, let's turn it around so you can see it. And the manifold for the right side is 674923. And he also supplied Felpro gaskets instead of using the Dorman gaskets. That's the gasket number, because these ones are shim steel. I agree with that. I'm going to put some sealant on the gaskets just to be, well, it's just my opinion. So there's the left side manifold installed. I'm going to leave the crossover bolts out just yet. There's my fix for the dipstick tube. I like that actually better than the brass union, because the brass union requires you to put wrenches on it. This is just a hose clamp. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just a dipstick. So trying to get that piece of dipstick out of the block would be a shit show, I'm sure. Anyways, on to the other side now. So what I usually do on this side, because I can get at it with a sawzall, is cut these bolts, because they're bolts and nuts. These stupid cage nuts never hold. Mind you, you can probably get these out. I might try and get them out if I can get an impact gun in here. Maybe. Now this side has a little bit more room. There's now pipes and steering shaft in the way. So let's hope it goes easier. So there's the right exhaust manifold off. I did preheat every bolt with a induction heater. This one snapped off. It was broken off. So we'll have to repeat, and it's actually recessed like 1/8 of an inch in there. So we'll have to repeat the same scenario on this side. Let's clean up the cylinder head first. So there's the second stud out. Just MIG welded on the end of it. I find that die grinding the end of it, deburring it, and cleaning the end makes a big difference. So now we'll clean up that surface and put it back together again. So there's the manifolds back on. The new bolts that came with the manifolds, because these manifolds are actually threaded instead of drilled, they were too long. So I put in some 2 1/4 inch 10 mil bolts. Yeah, crossover pipes reinstalled. Now I'll put the inner fender skirts back in.